This is an amazing story about a man from North Lincolnshire who buys a boat on eBay. I mean, that sounds unremarkable, doesn't it? But when you hear that Mal Nicholson has bought a schooner, the Pickle, and wants to create a full-size recreation of one of the most famous sailing ships of all time, and is getting on with it now and restoring it to its former glory, it sounds a little bit more interesting, doesn't it? And Mal is working on the project in Portugal. He joins us on the line this morning. Mal Nicholson, morning. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning, James.
How's it going? How is this project going? What's the current state of play?
Well, currently the decks are up, deck beams are out. Parts of the vessel are just exposed to the wind and the weather. The side of the ship on the port side is exposed. When it rains, we get wet, which it did yesterday. Yeah, but she is coming back together. You know, she's starting to look more of a ship than, I mean, to be honest with you, not that long ago, it was quite disheartening. There was more scrap wood coming out. I was beginning to wonder just what I'd bought.
Yeah, I can imagine that. But a bit of context for people who might not be familiar with you. If they remember the Humber Keel and Sloop Festival, as it was last year, and your boat, the Spider T, one of the star attractions of it. So you know, got a fair bit of maritime knowledge.
Yeah, well, you know, we did the Diamond Jubilee with the Spider T. We represented Great Britain at the Port Festival the World Port Festival, that is, in Rotterdam, and up to Scotland for representing our region again in historic ships for the 200th anniversary of the Bell Rock. But not only that, myself and the Spider T are the sort of national ambassadors, if you like, for the Sailors Children's Society, which is a national charity and a movement that looks after children, a safety net, if you like, from, you know, mariners who've either been incapacitated or fallen on hard times, and they pick up the challenge and look after the children, so to speak. It's been going since 1821.
Wow, it's got a lot of history. Let's turn our attention back to the Pickle then. And, I mean, tell us about the significance of the original ship. And then if you could go on to tell us about why you were motivated to take on this replica, what it means to you.
Yeah, well, basically, HMS Pickle actually was launched as the Sting, as we know it at the moment in Bermuda. She was a privateer, which I think is also a double meaning for pirate ship. And she was, at that time, the pride of Bermuda, in so much as she was probably the fastest ship in the world. She was purchased by an English officer who then introduced her to the Royal Navy, and she was at the Battle of Trafalgar, amongst it all, as a fast dispatch vessel. Nelson himself called her ubiquitous, which meant she was everywhere at once. She was so fast. And she was chosen to bring home the news of the winning of the Battle of Trafalgar and the sad loss of Lord Nelson. And she did it in an incredibly quick time. Some of the racing yachtsmen of today would struggle to match it.
It's interesting in historical context just how important that ship was, and at one point probably the height of naval technology and a real fighting force. Why then?
Absolutely.
Why work on restoring this replica so hard? What's the commitment?
Well, I prefer to use the term recreation.
Okay.
Because you can't replicate something that doesn't exist. So she is the only one of a kind in the world, and I think as a recreation, she epitomizes the Napoleonic era. And, you know, something, you know, Britannia ruled the waves, obviously, goes without saying at that moment in time. But she's a world-class vessel rather than just a national treasure. And, you know, to let her slowly sink into obscurity, as she was doing in Gibraltar, filling with water, rotting, and it wouldn't have been that long before, you know, she died where she lay, which to me seemed absolutely unbelievably wrong.
It's a labour of love by the sound of it. Mal, let's bring in Phil Warren. Phil helped you get HMS Pickle as far as Portugal. Mal, Phil's by my side in the studio now, and Phil, you can probably tell us a little bit about the amount of commitment this has taken to get it off the ground. So, when you saw it in Portugal, Phil, I mean, did you look at this and think this is going to work? We can make a go of this?
By the time I got to the vessel, they'd already had some adventures with her. The masts had cracked and fallen down. Various other bits had fallen off, and you could see that there was going to be a lot of work involved in doing it. But if anyone can achieve that, I'm sure that Mal can. He's got a long history of doing the impossible.
And the Spider T, of course, is testament to that, seeing that one come back to life in the way it has. Are you going to get involved in bringing this ship back further, maybe back to Hull?
I'd like to. As I was telling you earlier, I have a bit of an issue with the sunlight due to some medication that I'm on. But if I can dodge the sun, I'd certainly love to, yeah.
Well, come September, October, when the heat dies down in Portugal, a bit off-season, that'll be the perfect time to do it, no doubt, towards the winter. Mal, that is the ultimate aim, isn't it, to get the HMS Pickle recreation back into Hull?
Yeah, absolutely. I've launched a new business called HMS, which is Historic Motor and Sail, and with the sort of sports and racing cars that I have been previously involved with my previous business that unfortunately got destroyed in the flood, and motorcycle collections and such. Historic Motor and Sail is going to be something that's quite unique throughout Europe, let alone our region. And it just seemed to me that the very best could be had in our region, where normally we've played second fiddle to other ports around the country with, you know, our sort of region sort of picking up the scraps, so to speak, and no real recognition. It would be really nice to bring our region to the fore and to give people something extraordinary rather than ordinary to be able to share and enjoy.
When you think about cities like, well, towns, I don't know if Portsmouth is a town or a city, it's irrelevant, but places like Portsmouth and what they make of that, you know, they build an entire tourist economy on their maritime history. Phil, I imagine that, you know, that you see an opportunity like that in Hull as well, don't you? There's more to be done.
I'm sure. I said last time that I was on with Bernsey, you drive down Clive Sullivan Way and there's just nothing on that water at all. It was all nicely glinting in the sun this morning, but there's nothing on it. It needs sails on, and the Pickle's got 8 or 9. You know, that's 8 or 9 sails on there. That would be make it look a lot better.
And when the Pickle is up and running, and it's assuming the restoration goes to plan, talk me through what it's like, what a sailing ship looks like and feels like.
Well, I mean, most people won't have ever seen anything like that. As far as I know, there are no tall ships in this region. And it's just a memory, isn't it, of times gone by. Hull will have made its name as a port, and out there would have been hundreds, thousands probably of ships, and it needs some more interest. It needs something like this on that water.
There's an incredible beauty as well about the way these things work in harmony with the winds, and having to, you know, and no doubt the knowledge as well and the skill required to manage all those sails.
Yeah, you know, it's a fantastic sort of opportunity for other people to get involved. You know, as sort of education, historical education, but also sail training and things like that. You know, it could be the first of many, couldn't it?
And Mal, when this ship comes back to Hull, what do you see it doing? Is it going to sit there as a museum, or do you want it going up and down doing pleasure rides, or more than that?
Much more than that, James.
I need more vision.
Yes, yeah. I mean, really, you know, we're talking about living history here. Both ships, the Spider T and HMS Pickle, are fully operational. You know, they can go to sea, they can do what's needed of them, and they're up to the minute with not only the technology on board, but the strength and durability of the vessels themselves. So this isn't something that's going to sit there growing wheat on the quayside forever. This is something that's, you know, going to really take shape. The same with the racing cars and the sports cars. They all work. They're all usable. And the same with the motorcycles. So we're talking about living history here, where people can really see and appreciate what they're about, not just gathering dust in a static display, but things that actually work and do what they're supposed to do.
When do you think, if all goes to plan, you will be sailing, up through the Bay of Biscay, round the English Channel, and up the North Sea, and finally entering the Humber?
Well, there's a lot of interesting developments. Basically, today we're looking at an official invitation to take HMS Pickle into Portsmouth to be photographed and covered by the media with HMS Victory. That will be mid to late July, hopefully. The next 10 days, we're starting to get paint on. We're starting to get the final pieces of woodwork, taken care of. I mean, to anybody that looked at her this morning, they would think, good God, there's an awful lot to do. But the speed that these local craftsmen work at, they've been doing this type of work for many, many years. The Portuguese schooners, the white Portuguese schooners, the family-run business that is looking after the Pickle at the moment, they go back nearly 250 years doing nothing but this sort of work. So they're absolutely experts in this particular field. And the speed that they work at is unbelievable, and the quality, of course. But, yeah, we expect to be back in the water within a fortnight. We expect then to travel doing sea trials back to Villamora from Portimao. We will get the final rigging and all new bunks and all new seating, sails all hauled aloft, and ready then, I would think, within 10 days to fire back towards the UK.
Wow, it's going to be happening sooner rather than later. I mean, that's wonderful news. Mal, I'm sorry to cut you short. We're out of time. But thank you for coming on and talking to us about it. And no doubt we'll watch this space. And as soon as she makes our way towards our region, we will be all over it. Literally, I imagine, helping out with the sales, I hope. Thank you very much for your time this morning, Mal Nicholson and Phil Warren. Thank you for coming in.